The echo lens drifted through the void between Kepler 442 and its binary companion, a brown dwarf that had been cooling for 3 billion years. Dr. Maya Tran pressed her palm against the observation deck's viewport, watching distant pulsars paint streaks of light across the darkness. Each pulse was a lighthouse beam from a collapsed star, spinning faster than a helicopter rotor, broadcasting the universe's most precise timekeepers. Still can't sleep? Maya turned to find Captain Elena Voss approaching with 2 cups of synthetic coffee. The captain's silver hair caught the ambient lighting, and her weathered face showed the kind of lines that came from 20 years of deep space missions. "The signals are too interesting," Maya said, accepting the coffee gratefully. "PSRJ 1847 plus 0130 has been off its timing by 3 nanoseconds for the past week. That's like Big Ben running slow. Pulsars malfunction all the time," Elena said, settling into the chair beside her. "Starquakes, magnetic field shifts. Not like this." Maya pulled up her tablet, showing a cascade of data. "Look at the pattern. It's not random drift. There's structure here, repetition with variation. It's almost like..." She paused, studying the waveforms again. "Like what?" "Like language." Elena raised an eyebrow. "You think a pulsar is trying to talk to us? Not the pulsar itself, but something using the pulsar as a transmission medium." Maya swiped through more data screens. "I've been monitoring the gravitational wave detectors. There's definitely something modulating the space-time around PSR J 1847 plus 0130 and its companion, PSR J 1847 plus 0127. The 2 pulsars are locked in a binary orbit, and normally that creates a predictable pattern of gravitational waves as they spiral inward. But this..." She highlighted a section of the readout where the smooth sine waves suddenly developed complex harmonics and rhythmic variations. "This looks artificial, deliberate." Elena frowned at the data. "Maya, you're talking about something that would require technology beyond our comprehension. The energy needed to modulate gravitational waves from 2 pulsars would be immense." "Yes." Maya's dark eyes reflected the tablet's glow. "Which is why I think whatever is doing this is in desperate need of help." The ship's communication array chimed softly. Lieutenant Commander Jonas Kray's voice crackled through the intercom. "Dr. Tran, Captain Voss, please report to the bridge. We're receiving some unusual transmissions." Maya and Elena exchanged glances. They made their way through the echo lens's corridors, past laboratories filled with xenolinguistics equipment and quantum computers designed to decode the languages of species they had never met. The ship was humanity's most advanced attempt at interstellar diplomacy, a mobile translation center equipped to handle first contact scenarios. The bridge hummed with activity. Jonas stood at the sensor array, his augmented reality display painting holographic data streams around his head. Dr. Sarah Chun, the ship's physicist, hunched over the gravitational wave detector interface, her fingers dancing across haptic controls. "Report," Elena said, settling into the captain's chair. "It started 20 minutes ago," Jonas said. "The signal from PSR J 1847 plus 0130 suddenly intensified by a factor of 10. But it's not just the electromagnetic emissions. The gravitational wave pattern has become incredibly complex." Sarah looked up from her console, excitement evident in her voice. "Captain, this is unprecedented. The gravitational waves are carrying information. Massive amounts of it. It's like someone is using the binary pulsar system as a cosmic telegraph." Maya approached Sarah's station, her pulse quickening. "Can you isolate the pattern?" "I'm trying, but it's layered. Multiple frequencies, overlapping harmonics. It's almost like a polyphonic composition," Maya finished. "Multiple voices speaking simultaneously." Sarah nodded. "Exactly. But here's the strange part. The pattern seems to be responding to our presence. When I adjusted our sensor sensitivity, the signal shifted. When Jonas changed our orbital position slightly, it shifted again. It knows we're here." A chill ran down Maya's spine. "It's trying to communicate with us, specifically." "There's more," Jonas added, pulling up a 3-dimensional map of local space. "The signal isn't just coming from PSR J 1847 plus 0130. We're detecting similar but fainter patterns from 17 other binary pulsar systems within 100 light-years. They're all synchronized, all carrying variations of the same core message. A network. Elena breathed. Someone has turned multiple binary pulsar systems into a communication network. Maya stared at the data, her mind racing. The implications were staggering. To modulate gravitational waves required precise manipulation of massive objects, possibly the pulsars themselves. The technology involved would make humanity's greatest achievements look like stone tools. Dr. Tran, Sarah said quietly, I think you should see this. Maya moved to Sarah's console. The physicist had isolated one component of the gravitational wave signal and converted it to audio. The bridge filled with a sound like nothing Maya had ever heard. A deep, harmonic thrumming that seemed to resonate in her bones. But within the thrumming, she could hear patterns, repetitions, structure. It's definitely a language, Maya whispered. But the grammar is unlike anything in our databases. The temporal structure is nonlinear. Past, present, and future tenses seem to exist simultaneously in each phrase. Can you decode it? Elena asked. Maya was already connecting her specialized linguistics equipment to the ship's sensors. Give me 12 hours. But as she began her work, she didn't notice the way the lights on the bridge flickered in rhythm with the alien transmission. She didn't see how Sarah's equipment readings wavered for just a moment, showing impossible values before returning to normal. And she certainly didn't observe the way time itself seemed to hesitate, a barely perceptible stutter in the chronometers that synchronized the ship's systems. The signal from PSRJ 1847 plus 0130 pulsed stronger, and deep in the quantum substrates of the echo lens's computers, something that wasn't quite information began to take root. Maya hadn't slept in 16 hours. Her workstation in the linguistics lab was a chaos of holographic displays, each showing different aspects of the gravitational wave signal. Coffee cups and nutrition bars lay scattered across every surface, forgotten in her intense focus. The alien language, for she was now certain it was a language, operated on principles that challenged everything she knew about communication. Where human languages were sequential, building meaning word by word, this language layered concepts in dimensional space. A single utterance might contain dozens of parallel meaning threads, each modifying and contextualizing the others. Dr. Tran. Maya looked up to find Ensign David Park standing in her doorway, holding a meal tray. The young communications officer looked concerned. You missed lunch. And breakfast. The captain thought you might need. David, look at this. Maya gestured excitedly at her primary display. I've isolated what I think is the core message. It's repeating every 4.7 minutes, but each repetition includes variations that suggest it's adapting to our responses. David set down the tray and approached cautiously. What does it say? That's just it. Traditional translation doesn't work. But if I map the conceptual structures, Maya manipulated the hologram, showing how different signal components related to each other in three-dimensional space. I think it's trying to establish a common frame of reference. See these recurring patterns? They correlate with our position, our trajectory, even our ship's mass and energy signature. It's describing us. More than that, it's describing the relationship between us and them. And David. Maya's voice dropped to a whisper. I think they're trapped. She highlighted a section of the signal that pulsed with desperate urgency. This pattern repeats throughout the transmission. If my analysis is correct, it translates roughly to contained, imprisoned, or unable to escape. They're using the pulsars as a beacon because they can't move. David studied the data, frowning. Trapped where? And by whom? Before Maya could answer, the ship's emergency klaxon sounded. Captain Voss's voice echoed through the corridors. All senior staff to the bridge immediately. Maya and David rushed to the bridge, finding the senior crew gathered around Sarah's physics station. The normally composed physicist looked shaken. Captain, Sarah said, we have a problem. The gravitational field around the ship is fluctuating in ways that shouldn't be possible. It's as if space-time itself is becoming unstable. Elena frowned. Could it be interference from the pulsar signals? That's what I thought initially. But the fluctuations aren't random. They're patterned, structured, and they're getting stronger. Jonas looked up from his sensor array. Captain, we're also detecting quantum interference in our communication systems. Some of our messages to Earth are arriving before we send them. That's impossible, Elena said. I know, but the timestamps don't lie. 3 of our routine status reports have been received by Earth Command 23 minutes before transmission logs show we sent them. Maya felt a chill of understanding. The signal isn't just informational, she said slowly. It's affecting space-time itself. The aliens aren't just using gravitational waves to communicate. They're using them to manipulate the fabric of reality. To what end? Elena asked. Escape, Maya said. I think they've been trapped in some kind of prison that exists outside normal space and time. They're using the pulsars to create a gateway, a way to break through into our reality. But the process is destabilizing local space-time. Sarah's console suddenly erupted with alerts. Captain, massive gravitational wave burst from PSR J 1847 plus 0130. The amplitude is off the charts. The bridge lights flickered, and for a moment, Maya could have sworn she saw something in her peripheral vision. A flash of impossible geometry, angles that folded in on themselves, corridors that led everywhere and nowhere. Dr. Tran, Elena said urgently, can you decode their message faster? If they're destabilizing space-time, we need to know what they want. Maya nodded, already heading back to her lab. But as she worked, she couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching her through the data streams. The patterns in the signal seemed to pulse with awareness, as if the alien intelligence could see through its own transmission directly into the ship. Hours passed. Maya's translation algorithms grew more sophisticated, and slowly, meaning began to emerge from the chaos of gravitational waves. We are the architects, the signal said. We built the foundations of space and time itself. But in our pride, we created a flaw, a crack in reality through which something else could enter. We were forced to imprison ourselves to prevent it from spreading, but now the prison weakens. We must warn you. We must escape before. The message cut off abruptly, replaced by something else. Something that definitely wasn't the architects. The new signal was harsh, discordant, filled with malevolent intent. And as Maya listened to it, she realized with growing horror that it was learning to speak in human language. Finally, it said in a voice that bypassed her ears and spoke directly to her mind. Finally, someone who can hear. Soon, the architect's cage will break. Soon, we will be free to unmake everything they built, starting with your fragile little ship. Maya's hands trembled as she reached for the emergency shutoff, but before she could activate it, the lights in her lab went out. In the darkness, she could hear something that sounded like cosmic laughter, vast, ancient, and utterly without mercy. When the lights came back on, Maya found herself staring at a message that had somehow appeared on every screen in her lab simultaneously. Don't stop listening, little translator. We have so much more to tell you. Dr. Chin found Maya unconscious at her workstation 3 hours later. The linguist was slumped over her keyboard, her neural interface still connected to the translation matrix. Around her, every screen in the lab displayed the same image, a complex geometric pattern that seemed to shift and writhe when viewed directly. Maya. Sarah shook her gently. Maya, wake up. Maya's eyes fluttered open, unfocused and confused. Sarah? What time is it? 1700 hours. You've been unconscious for nearly 3 hours. What happened? Maya sat up slowly, her head pounding. The geometric patterns on her screens flickered and disappeared, replaced by normal diagnostic readouts. I was translating the signal. There was a second voice, something else speaking through the transmission. Something that wasn't the architects. Architects. The alien intelligence that's been sending the distress signal. They call themselves the architects. They built something. Maybe space-time itself. I'm not sure. But there's something else trapped with them. Something they imprisoned to protect the universe from it. Sarah helped Maya to her feet, noting how pale and shaky she looked. Maya, you need to see Dr. Okafor. You might have neural feedback from the interface. No, you don't understand. Maya gripped Sarah's arm urgently. The other voice, it spoke to me directly. It bypassed the translation matrix entirely. It's learning our language, our thought patterns, and it's trying to escape. Before Sarah could respond, Jonas's voice crackled through the intercom. all senior staff to the bridge. We have multiple emergencies. They hurried to the bridge, where chaos greeted them. Half the crew was clustered around various stations, all talking at once. Captain Voss stood in the center, trying to coordinate responses to multiple crises. "Report," Sarah called out as she and Maya approached. Jonas looked up from his station, his face grim. "We're experiencing cascading system failures. Navigation is showing impossible readings. We're apparently in 17 different locations simultaneously. Life support is cycling through various atmospheric compositions from the past week. And communications." He paused, looking disturbed. "We're receiving distress calls from ourselves. Multiple versions of the Echo lens, all claiming to be the real ship." Dr. Yuki Okafor, the ship's medical officer, approached Elena with a tablet full of data. "Captain, I'm detecting neurological anomalies in 60% of the crew. Temporal lobe activity is spiking, and several crew members are reporting visual and auditory hallucinations." "What kind of hallucinations?" Maya asked. "Varied. Some see corridors that don't exist. Others hear voices speaking languages they don't recognize. Ensign Martinez swears she saw her grandmother, who died 5 years ago, working in the hydroponics bay." Elena's expression darkened. "Dr. Tran, could this be related to your translation work?" Maya hesitated. "It's possible. The signal isn't just information. It's affecting local space-time. If the architects really did build the fundamental structure of reality, then their imprisonment and attempted escape could be destabilizing the basic laws of physics in this region." "I'm shutting down all communication with a pulsar signal," Elena decided. "Wait." Maya stepped forward. "Captain, I understand your concern, but cutting off communication now could be catastrophic. The architects are trying to warn us about something worse. If we stop listening, we might miss critical information about how to contain the threat." "The threat is already here," Jonas interrupted. "Captain, our quantum sensors are detecting temporal fractures throughout the ship. Time isn't flowing consistently. My chronometer shows 1723, but the computer logs indicate it's 1647, and the gravitational wave timestamp says it's 1952. As if to emphasize his point, the bridge suddenly filled with overlapping voices, multiple versions of their own conversation happening simultaneously. "Shut down all communication, might miss critical information, temporal fractures throughout, seeing corridors that don't exist." The voices faded after a few seconds, leaving an uncomfortable silence. "That's been happening for the past hour," Dr. Okafor said quietly. "We're experiencing echoes of past and future conversations. Sometimes crew members respond to questions that haven't been asked yet." Maya felt a chill of recognition. "It's the other intelligence, the one imprisoned with the architects. It's using the destabilization to bleed through into our reality. Then we shut everything down," Elena said firmly. "Captain," Maya pleaded, "give me 6 more hours. I'm close to a breakthrough. The architect's message contains instructions, a way to reinforce the prison and contain the threat. But I need to decode the complete transmission." Elena studied Maya's face, noting the dark circles under her eyes and the slight tremor in her hands. "Dr. Tran, you've been exposed to more of this signal than anyone. How do I know you're still thinking clearly?" It was a fair question, and Maya knew it. She could feel the alien patterns etched into her memory, geometric concepts that human minds weren't designed to process. Sometimes, when she closed her eyes, she could see fragments of impossible architecture, corridors that folded through dimensions that didn't exist, structures built from crystallized time itself. "Test me," Maya said. "Ask me anything about my past, my work, anything that would reveal if I'm compromised." Elena was about to respond when the ship's emergency klaxon sounded again. This time, the alert was different, a pattern none of them had heard before. "That's not one of our emergency codes," Jonas said, checking his manual. The klaxon continued, and slowly, the crew realized they could hear words in the alien rhythm. "The cage weakens. The watchers sleep. Soon, soon, soon." Dr. Okafor's medical scanner suddenly erupted with alerts. "Captain, massive neurological spikes throughout the ship. It's like something is trying to establish direct neural contact with the crew." "Maya," Elena said urgently, "whatever you're going to do it fast. I'm giving you 4 hours, then we're jumping to FTL and getting as far from this signal as possible. Maya nodded and rushed back to her lab. But as she worked, she couldn't shake the feeling that she was running out of time in more ways than one. The geometric patterns in her mind were growing stronger, more complex, and she was beginning to suspect that translating the signal was changing her at a fundamental level. The question was, would she remain human long enough to save the ship? Maya's fingers moved across the holographic interface with inhuman precision, manipulating conceptual structures that existed in dimensions human mathematics could barely describe. She had been working for 3 hours straight, and the architect's language was finally beginning to make sense, not just as information, but as a direct modification of local space-time. Each symbol in their writing was simultaneously a concept, a mathematical equation, and a small alteration to the fabric of reality itself. To truly understand their message, Maya realized she had to let it rewrite portions of her consciousness to match their thought patterns. The process was terrifying and exhilarating. Dr. Tran. Maya looked up to find David Park standing in her doorway again, but something was wrong. His face flickered between present and past. One moment the concerned ensign she knew, the next a version of himself with gray hair and lines around his eyes. David, how long have you been standing there? I'm not sure. Sometimes it feels like minutes, sometimes hours. Maya, the temporal distortions are getting worse. I just had a conversation with my future self about events that haven't happened yet. Maya checked her chronometer. According to the display, she had been working for 3 hours. But according to her computer logs, she had been working for 7 hours. According to her body's exhaustion levels, she had been working for 15 minutes. Time is becoming non-linear, she said, more to herself than to David. The prison the architects built isn't just spatial. It exists outside normal temporal flow. As it weakens, causality itself is breaking down. Through her neural interface, she could feel the alien patterns growing stronger. The architect's message was nearly complete, but the other intelligence, the one they called the Unmaker, was also gaining coherence. Maya, David said urgently, Captain Voss wants you on the bridge. Something's happening to the crew. They made their way through corridors that occasionally led to rooms that didn't exist. Maya glimpsed laboratories from the ship's past configuration, quarters belonging to crew members who had never been assigned to the Echo Lens, and once, disturbingly, a corridor filled with versions of herself in various stages of the translation process. The bridge was in chaos. Half the crew seemed to be responding to commands that hadn't been given, while others stood frozen, apparently experiencing time at a different rate than their surroundings. Maya, Elena called out as they arrived. I need to know, is there any way to stabilize the temporal distortions without cutting off the signal entirely? Maya approached the captain's chair, but as she did, she noticed that Elena seemed to be aging and de-aging in slow cycles, as if her personal timeline was caught in a loop. The architect's message contains stabilization protocols, Maya said, but implementing them requires. She paused, struggling to find words for concepts that didn't exist in human language. It requires temporarily synchronizing our consciousness with theirs. Essentially, we would need to think like beings who exist outside normal space-time. Is that safe? Probably not. The human mind isn't designed to process four-dimensional temporal structures. But Captain, I'm beginning to understand what the architects are trying to prevent. The Unmaker isn't just another alien intelligence. It's antithetical to existence itself. It doesn't just want to destroy our reality. It wants to ensure that reality never existed in the first place. Sarah looked up from her physics console, her face pale. Maya, I'm detecting massive spatial distortions around the ship. It's like reality is developing cracks. On the main view screen, the stars have begun to flicker. Some appear to be moving backward through their evolutionary cycles, while others aged billions of years and seconds. And in the spaces between the stars, something vast and dark was beginning to emerge. The Unmaker is using the temporal instability to break through, Maya realized. Every distortion, every paradox, weakens the barriers between dimensions. We need to implement the architect's stabilization protocol now, or it will achieve complete manifestation in our reality. Do it, Elena ordered. Maya nodded and activated her neural interface, but this time she opened the connection fully, allowing the alien patterns to flow directly into her consciousness without any filters or safeguards. The effect was immediate and overwhelming. Her perception exploded outward, encompassing not just the ship, but the entire local region of space-time. She could see the binary pulsar system as the architect saw it, not just as massive objects spinning through space, but as anchor points in a complex multidimensional structure that held reality together. The prison was beautiful and terrible, a cage built from crystallized mathematics and temporal paradoxes. Inside it, two intelligences had been locked in eternal conflict, the architects desperately trying to maintain reality's coherence, while the unmakers sought to dissolve the very concept of existence back into primordial chaos. But the prison was failing. Each pulse from the binary pulsars sent another crack through its structure, and with each crack, more of the unmaker's essence leaked into normal space. Through the architect's message, Maya could see the solution. The prison couldn't be repaired, but could be reinforced by creating additional anchor points. The process required conscious observers, beings capable of simultaneously perceiving multiple dimensions, to serve as living stabilization nodes. Maya, what are you doing? Elena's voice seemed to come from very far away. Maya realized she was standing in the center of the bridge, her arms outstretched, geometric patterns of light emanating from her body. Around her, the crew was beginning to glow with similar patterns as the stabilization protocol infected their consciousness. I'm implementing the architect's solution, Maya said, her voice layered with harmonics that shouldn't have been possible. We have to become anchor points ourselves. We have to synchronize our existence with the fundamental structure of space-time. Maya, stop. You're changing us into something else. But Maya could see that it was too late. The process had already begun, and interrupting it now would leave them trapped between human and architect consciousness, vulnerable to the unmaker's influence. Trust me, she said as reality folded around them. This is the only way to save not just our ship, but existence itself. The echo lens vanished from normal space-time, translated into a realm where past, present, and future existed simultaneously, where the crew became living extensions of the cosmic architecture that held reality together. And in the space where the ship had been, something vast and hungry turned its attention toward Earth. Maya existed in 17 different temporal states simultaneously, each version of herself experiencing a different moment in the stabilization process. In one timeline, she was still human, desperately trying to decode the architect's message. In another, she had become something closer to pure mathematics. Her consciousness spread across light years of space-time. The crew of the echo lens floated in the dimensional space between realities, their bodies adapting to an environment where physical laws were more like suggestions. Some, like David Park, retained mostly human form, but with eyes that could see through time. Others, like Dr. Chun, had become partially incorporeal, their consciousness interfacing directly with the quantum foam that underlied existence. Captain Voss, somehow, remained stubbornly human in appearance, though Maya could sense that her mind now operated on multiple dimensional levels. Status report, Elena commanded, her voice carrying across impossible distances. We're stable, Maya replied, though she spoke from 7 different points in space simultaneously. The architect's protocol worked. We've become anchor points in the cosmic architecture, but the cost. She gestured to where Jonas floated nearby, his form shifting between past and future versions of himself. We're no longer entirely human. Can we return in normal space? Eventually. But Captain, something else has happened. The Unmaker has taken advantage of our translation to break through into our original reality. It's heading for Earth. Elena's expression hardened. Show me. Maya manipulated the dimensional space around them, creating a viewing portal that looked back into normal space-time. Earth's solar system appeared, but it was wrong. Space itself seemed to be unraveling around the planet. Stars were disappearing as their past existence was retroactively erased, and time flowed in chaotic eddies that aged some regions of space while de-aging others. It's rewriting history, Maya explained. The Unmaker doesn't just destroy. It makes things never have existed. Every human achievement, every life that was ever lived, is being systematically removed from the timeline. How long do we have? Maya consulted her expanded consciousness, perceiving probability cascades across multiple futures. At current rates of temporal dissolution, human civilization will never have existed within 47 hours. But Maya, she paused, confused by her own words. But the Unmaker's approach is nonlinear. It might arrive at Earth yesterday, or it might not arrive until next century. Causality isn't functioning normally. Dr. Okafor's voice reached them from a different dimensional plane. Captain, I'm monitoring the crew's neurological patterns. The transformation is continuing. We're becoming more like the architects with each passing moment. At some point, we may lose the ability to care about human concerns entirely. Elena nodded grimly. Dr. Tran, is there a way to stop the Unmaker? Maya felt her consciousness divide again, exploring millions of possible futures simultaneously. In most timelines, the Unmaker succeeded in dissolving human existence. In others, the architects managed to re-establish their prison, but at the cost of erasing the entire local galactic cluster from reality. But there was one possibility, a narrow thread of causality that led to a different outcome. There's a way, Maya said slowly, but it requires us to abandon our role as anchor points and return to normal space. The stabilization network will collapse, but we can use that collapse to create a temporal feedback loop, essentially trapping the Unmaker in a moment that never quite happens. What's the catch? Elena asked, knowing there had to be one. The process requires a conscious observer to maintain the paradox. Someone has to remain in the moment of collapse, experiencing it forever, preventing it from resolving into either success or failure. The bridge, for they were still, in some sense, on the bridge of the echo lens, fell silent. Elena closed her eyes, processing the implications. I'll do it, she said finally. No, Captain. Maya's voice carried a tone of absolute certainty. It has to be me. I'm the only one who has sufficient integration with both human and architect consciousness patterns. And, she hesitated. I'm already partially outside normal time. The transformation has progressed furthest in me. Elena studied Maya's form, noting how she flickered between human and something else, something beautiful and terrible and utterly alien. Maya, are you sure this will work? No, but it's our only chance to preserve human existence. And Captain, even if I succeed, I won't be coming back. The person you knew as Maya Tran will cease to exist. What remains will be something else, a living paradox, forever caught between moments. Elena reached out and, somehow, managed to touch Maya's hand despite the dimensional barriers between them. Thank you. Maya smiled, and for a moment, she looked entirely human again. Tell my parents I figured out how to translate the impossible. She began the process immediately, unweaving the stabilization network that held their local region of space-time together. The crew of the Echo Lens felt reality reassert itself around them as they were translated back into normal space. The ship materialized in the void between PSRJ 1847+0130 and its companion, alarms blaring as systems struggled to readjust to linear time. But Maya remained behind, existing in the moment of collapse itself. As the network dissolved, she reached out across light years of space and time, grasping the Unmaker's essence just as it prepared to complete its assault on Earth. The two consciousnesses, one dedicated to preserving existence, the other to negating it, locked together in an eternal paradox. In that moment, Maya ceased to be human. She became something new, a living equation that balanced creation and destruction, existence and void, forever preventing either from achieving victory. She was the pause between heartbeats, the space between thoughts, the eternal instant that kept reality from collapsing into either absolute order or absolute chaos. And in normal space, the crew of the Echo Lens watched as PSRJ 1847+0130 stabilized, its timing returning to perfect precision. The gravitational wave signal faded to background levels, carrying only the natural emissions of two neutron stars in their ancient dance. On Earth, astronomers noted that several stars that had seemed to be fading over the past few hours had returned to normal brightness. Time moved forward in its accustomed rhythm, and no one knew how close they had come to never having existed at all. 3 months later, Captain Elena Voss stood in the observation deck of the Echo lens, watching PSRJ 1847 plus 0130 pulse with perfect regularity. The ship had completed its mission and was preparing to return to Earth, but Elena found herself drawn to this spot daily, searching for any sign that Maya still existed somewhere in the cosmic architecture. Dr. Chin joined her, carrying a cup of real coffee, a luxury she had ordered from the emergency stores. "Any word from the debriefing committee?" Sarah asked. "They're calling it a first contact success," Elena replied with bitter irony. "Official reports state that we established communication with an advanced alien civilization and prevented a potential threat to Earth. Maya's name will go down in the history books. If only they knew the whole truth." Elena nodded. The official version of events was necessarily incomplete. How could they explain that Maya had become a living mathematical constant, forever preventing the universe from being retroactively erased? How could they describe the architects, beings who existed outside time itself, or the unmaker, whose very nature was antithetical to existence? "The crew is adapting," Sarah continued. "Dr. Okafor says the residual neural modifications are stable. We all think a little differently now, more multidimensionally, but we're still human." "Are we?" Elena touched the viewport, remembering how she had briefly existed in 17 different temporal states. Sometimes, in quiet moments, she could still perceive fragments of the greater structure that Maya had shown them, the cosmic architecture that held reality together. David Park approached from the corridor, now wearing lieutenant stripes. His time perception had never fully normalized, but he had learned to function despite occasionally experiencing conversations several minutes before they actually occurred. "Captain," he said, "we're receiving a transmission from Earth Command. They want a final report on the linguistic analysis." Elena sighed. "Tell them we decoded the basic structure of the alien language, but that further research would require resources beyond what the Echo lens can provide." It was true in a way. Maya had decoded the architect's language completely, but the knowledge was locked away with her in the eternal moment of the temporal paradox. Any attempt to access it would risk destabilizing the delicate balance she maintained. "Captain," Sarah said quietly, "I've been monitoring the gravitational wave background. There are patterns, subtle ones, hidden in the natural fluctuations of space-time itself." Elena turned sharply. "What kind of patterns?" "I think it's Maya. She's found a way to communicate through the fundamental structure of reality itself. The messages are incredibly faint, but they're there." Sarah pulled out her tablet, showing barely perceptible variations in the cosmic gravitational wave background. "She's saying she's okay, that the balance is holding. And—" Sarah hesitated, checking her readings again. "And what?" "She says thank you, and that she finally understands what language really is. Not just communication between minds, but the fundamental grammar that holds existence together." Elena felt tears she didn't know she had been holding back. "Can we respond?" "I don't think so. The energy required to modulate space-time at that level would destabilize entire star systems." "But Captain, I think she knows we're listening." They stood in comfortable silence, watching the pulsar's lighthouse beams sweep across the void. In the distance, other stars pulsed with their own rhythms, each one a potential message, a possible signal that consciousness existed in the vastness of space. Jonas joined them, carrying a bottle and 4 glasses. "I thought we should mark the occasion," he said. "This is the last time we'll see PSRJ 1847 plus 0130 for a while." They poured the drinks, synthetic whiskey that somehow tasted better in the shadow of cosmic mysteries, and raised their glasses toward the binary pulsar system. "To Maya," Elena said. "To Maya," they echoed. As they drank, none of them noticed the way the ship's chronometers hiccuped for just an instant, or how the lights flickered in a pattern that might have been Morse code, spelling out a message in a language they had never learned. Still here, still listening, still human enough to remember friendship. 10 years later, Dr. Lisa Hernandez reviewed the data from humanity's 3rd Deep Space Linguistics mission. The Echo Lens program had expanded, with 5 ships now exploring the galaxy for signs of alien communication. So far, they had cataloged 17 different xenolinguistic patterns, though none as complex as the one Dr. Maya Tran had encountered. Maya's name was legend now. The woman who had made first contact with beings from outside normal space-time, who had prevented an existential threat to humanity, and who had given her life to preserve the universe itself. Universities named linguistics departments after her. Children learned about her in school alongside other great explorers and scientists. But Lisa knew something the history books didn't record. She had been Maya's graduate student, had worked alongside her in the early days of xenolinguistics research. And Lisa had learned to recognize patterns that others missed. In the cosmic microwave background radiation, there were subtle variations that shouldn't exist. In the timing of distant pulsars, there were microscopic irregularities that followed known astronomical phenomena. In the quantum fluctuations of empty space itself, there were structures that looked almost like language. Maya was still out there, still translating, still mediating between existence and void. She had become part of the universe's basic operating system, a living consciousness embedded in the fundamental laws of physics. Sometimes, when Lisa worked late in her laboratory, analyzing signals from the edge of known space, she felt a presence, gentle, familiar, encouraging. Maya might have transcended human form, but she was still teaching, still helping her student unlock the secrets of cosmic communication. And in the space between one quantum moment and the next, in the pause between gravitational waves, in the silence between stellar pulses, Maya Tran continued her eternal work as the universe's translator, ensuring that the conversation between mind and cosmos would never end. The Echo lens sailed on through the darkness, carrying its crew toward new mysteries, new languages, new opportunities to bridge the gap between human understanding and cosmic truth. And somewhere in the quantum foam that underlay all existence, Maya smiled and continued her vigil, forever listening, forever translating, forever ensuring that reality itself would never lose its voice. In the deepest equations that governed space-time, her consciousness remained, a constant in the mathematics of existence, proof that some forms of communication transcend the boundaries between life and physics, between humanity and the infinite architecture of the cosmos. She had found the ultimate language at last, the grammar of existence itself, and she would speak it forever.